With everyone's wallets open and paying attention only to Lord of the Rings, there's a lot of value out there that a lot of players are missing out on. There are old cards that can be found to have new uses when a new set comes out like Lord of the Rings. So let's take a look at some fantastic Magic cards that you should be watching. If you thought this video was only going to be about Lord of the Rings cards, you're incorrect, but I hope you stick around anyway. Welcome back, everyone. MTG Moxman here. Thanks again for hanging out with me on my channel today. And before we start the video, a big shout out and thank you to the regular viewers tuning in and commenting every day, to the new subscribers helping me get closer to 20,000 subscribers. Thanks again, everyone who's giving the videos a thumbs up, taking a moment to comment in the comment section, and of course hitting the subscribe button. It's amazing to see how far this channel has grown in the last 2 years. So it's awesome. I can't wait to continue this conversation with you for a very long time to come. So let's get to this. This is a card watch video. As you guys know, the way things are going with Lord of the Rings right now, money is flowing in there like it's like a bottomless well. I cannot believe, you've seen it on other YouTube content creators, you've seen other stuff, but there's just so much to talk about. And number one, that is some scary stuff. You saw my video yesterday. If you didn't, go back and watch it. That is some scary stuff. That is not natural to the ecosystem of Magic. It's like we've broken through a whole new wall and Deadpool's staring at us saying, hey man, you want to buy some cards? It's really crazy. Now, when we're talking about Magic the Gathering and the secondary market in particular here on our Card Watch, I do 2 videos a week. We get one on Thursday and of course one on Friday before we hit the top 10 weekend for reserve list and non-reserve list cards. But when I look at this stuff and you look at what's happening in the market, when money like this gets saturated, just gets, everyone's thinking the same thing, and it goes out there and you're like, whoa, my money's not worth anything now. Everyone's just buying Lord of the Rings. And you need some liquidity. And people are selling cards. You got to remember, some of these Lord of the Rings cards will connect to new cards and old cards. They can make strange things happen that you didn't think were possible or give you a better chance of doing things. But also, looking at the market going forward, we can take a look at some really strange happenings on the market and connect those together to see when we should be buying cards and when we should be avoiding them. Because not every time is a good time to buy cards. Sometimes you got to stay away and let the market settle down, and this is one of them. I know a lot of people won't listen to me, but this is one of the moments you should not be diving in looking for particular cards. I know everyone's on the hunt for all that serialized craziness, but remember, after you have the card, finding that particular buyer who can afford to pay for it at those exorbitant prices isn't going to be as easy as people think. So we'll see how it goes. So anyway, let's take our time. Let's go through some great cards today. Let me know what cards you think are amazing and underrated right now, and we'll carry this conversation right into the comments section. Let's check out this first card. I want to start things off today with the Dragon. Okay, it's up for reprint. We've got Commander Masters coming, which means this thing's coming around. Take a look at the market turmoil on the card. Since the announcement, going back, right, you can see this card has continued to sink down, okay? Month over month, from January onward, the card has been having a steady decline in price. Now, most people will, at this moment, think, hey, it's not at a bad price point, but that's only compared to where it has been. Remember, with Commander Masters and the reprints coming, it will be one of those cards that gets a lot of printing, okay? I think they intend on killing the value because originally this card used to be like a $5, $6 card back in the day. It's risen to a certain level because of all the dragon tribal stuff we've seen. And this is that moment, a card like this, really, they're going to make it fall down. It's going to become like a $15 card. They're going to want to drag some revenue out of it, cash in on the IP. So if you're a player hoping to get this card, I know you're thinking about it, but this is not the time to buy. The time to buy is going to be October to November of 2023, toward the last quarter of the year, because you want enough of the cards to hit the market and you want enough of a glut to form that everyone starts lowering their prices. And that will happen. How many people are trying to build commander decks that are just Dragon Tribal? There could be thousands, but this card's going to be opened a lot more than that, so keep that stuff in mind. Cards like this and some of the upcoming cards in this set, since it's a reprint set, they're cashing an IP, so any of those cards from Commander Masters, I just like to keep hitting it home that this is not the time to buy anything you think is getting a reprint. It's time to stop that stuff and avoid it entirely, okay? just scary stuff when you see what the prices are going to be. This dragon's going to 20 bucks. That's my estimation, my opinion on things. Now, here's a reserve list card. This is Lure of Prey. Very cheap card, okay, guys? Under $10, you can see it there. But when you take a look at what the card does and think about things from Lord of the Rings, but also think about some of the bigger creatures we've seen, some of these monsters that have been coming out. Lure of Prey is a 2 green, 2 generic. Play only if an opponent successfully cast a summon spell this turn. That's an opponent. That means it's commander playable 100%. Now, it says here, put a green summon card from your hand into play as though it were just played. Now, a lot of people may not think much of this card. It's a forecasting cost, kind of heavy on the green. But when you think about all the cards that can get blended into the combat now, when you look at all these multicolored decks that have multiple colors, and that's what Wizards seems to be breeding in right now, a card like this has high playable factor to it. When somebody casts out a 2/2 creature, if you happen to have more mana ramp, you can lay out the Tarsarak. I don't care. You can lay out some giant dragon. You can lay out old Gnawbone. You can put crazy things on the board to make people think twice. And of course, it's at instant speed. I don't care which opponent you choose. I don't care what's going on. You have opportunities to really abuse it. And a card at this cheap of a level, when you know it's been 20, 30 bucks, and no, it's not going to rise to those levels, but if people bought 100 copies, it wouldn't move the market more than 20 cents. So if you're looking for this copy, looking for a card like this from Mirage, I suggest you buy a near mint copy. Okay, I really do. Spending this exact amount, you can get moderately played for $3. But if you're going to pay that kind of price, you might as well go for near mint in case the card ever spikes again. It's a very small term investment that you can use and play and enjoy, but could end up being something later on. Now the next card, Rashida Scalesbane, is from Mirage, and this card is kind of an interesting thing to think about as a dragon type card. Now, Rashida has been as high when dragons got announced. We saw things coming up like Lord of the Rings, not Lord of the Rings, sorry, Dungeons and Dragons. When you saw those things come up and all the dragons from Commander Legends, Baldur's Gate and stuff, people really went heavy on Rashida. Okay, they really looked at this card. 2 white, 3 generic, a 3/4. Bury target attacking or blocking dragon. Gain an amount of life equal to the dragon's power. Now, even my son Minimox has put this card into his dragon deck, but what I find interesting about the card is how far it's fallen. The interest waned immediately. The card crashed down. It just crashed again and again and again. It is only a little bit above where it used to be. So imagine if this card ever spiked again where you'd be. That's kind of a speculation type deal. But if you're a person who thought about buying this card, you can literally buy it for under $2 now. If you waited that extra year, you've seen it decrease in price by 80% from where it was a year ago, or even higher, more like, massive amounts, but it's so cheap that you can just go out and grab it. Moderately played copies for 60 cents. If you go on TCG Player, this is some crazy stuff we're seeing right now, and it's a great time to buy cards like this if you thought about it in the past. Its overall playability, of course, for a Dragon Commander deck is great, but it's more like an aside throw-in card for most decks. So it's not going to have a prime playability, but it's interesting if you're worried about your creatures being taken control of, having a backup card like this in your Dragon Commander deck. It's interesting. Now our next card, Island Sanctuary. Now this is a revised edition card. There's a few editions of it, but this is a card that's probably not ever getting printed again. It has certain printings, but I don't see a card like this coming back, and this card can be more easily used now than it ever could when I was back in the day playing with it. When you take a look at Island Sanctuary, this thing's less than $5. 1 white, 1 generic enchantment. You may decline to draw a card from your library during draw phase. In exchange, until the start of your next turn, only creatures that may attack you are those that have flying or island walk. Now what's interesting is I used to use cards like this in combination with Gravity Sphere, which says all creatures lose flying, and cards like Mystic Decree says all creatures lose island walk and flying. Like, you have multiple layers that stop people from attacking you. But how can you draw then? How can you still keep your deck competitive and effective? You don't just want to hold people off, you want to draw cards. And that's where some new cards can really come into play for you. Now, this card, before we get to what I'm talking about with Island Sanctuary, this card is the Grey Heavens. Another interesting card, very inexpensive, and this is from Lord of the Rings. But what I like about this card, what I think is very unique, is the fact, number one, it's an uncommon. When it comes into the battlefield, you get to scry 1, and it doesn't come into play tapped, which honestly is a very powerful mechanic for a card like this. But not only that, it also has the secondary ability of add 1 mana of any color among legendary creature cards in your graveyard. Do you know how easy it is to flip a card into your graveyard? Do you know how easy it is to get a creature killed on the battlefield so you have access to more types of mana? In a 5-color deck, in a Joe to the Unifier and stuff, this kind of card that has heavy legendary creatures will be a very good card to have. Almost a staple in some cases. The fact it's so cheap and nobody's really thinking about it, I would go for the flashier versions. And yeah, of course, all these cards are getting reprinted. Don't make no bones. Anything non-reserve list, I don't even want to think about it. But getting yourself some copies for 40 cents, come on, we're talking 5 copies for $2. This is not a massive amount of money, okay? It's a very small expense. And the last card I want to share with you guys before we continue this like market kind of conversation for MTG Finance, here is Dawn of a New Age. This card is overpriced right now. I would not buy it at this price point, but I want to emphasize stuff like Island Sanctuary. If you have a whole bunch of creature generation, if you have a 5-color deck that can generate tokens of different types, I don't care. Goblins, Thralls, Thalids, I don't care. Any elves, whatever. Dawn of the New Age says, Dawn of the New Age enters the battlefield with a hope counter on it for each creature you control. So if you're using something like Island Sanctuary with no draw, but you can cast out a lot of creatures that can't attack, you get a lot of counters. At the beginning of your end step, remove a hope counter from Dawn of New Age. If you do, draw a card. So it's a way of drawing cards. When it runs out, you gain 4 life. But then there's cards like Skull of Orm, there's other recursion ideas like Replenish that can bring these cards back over and over again. And because this card costs so little to cast, this card is going to be a highly sought after and effective card in the game. I don't think that price point is right for a card like this, but don't underestimate cards like this and how they can be twisted to fit with older card mechanics in either modern, but also in vintage, legacy, commander. Cards like that are going to have a home. Because I look at it and say, look at all the diverse ways you can throw that in to draw. Not only draw, when it dies or gets gone, you get to gain some life. You get a little bit of a kick from it. For 1 white and 1 generic, are you kidding me? The way the power level of some of these cards are, and the way they can fit with certain cards on the reserve list and non-reserve list cards in other formats is going to be a crazy combination time. The brew potential for many of these cards is phenomenal. But because players are mainly looking for those one ring things and all that excitement going on, there'll be so much opened that prices will really come down. You wait that 90 to 120 days. You wait and see how much some of these cards drop. It's going to be significant. And it may only be temporary, but if you keep your eye on the ball, mark down the cards you care about, you're going to come out ahead in the long run when a lot of other players are not going to see or focus on what they should be focusing on. A lot of Timmies just look at the bright light and the shiny twinklies and go, I want that! And that's all they look at. They're not looking at the end result of maximizing their dollar for the most play potential they can get out of a card. And that's what you're hoping to do, is have a good time, play with the cards and enjoy it, and build a fun deck that a lot of players are going to go, wow, that's pretty cool. Something they haven't seen before. Crazy stuff nowadays. Anyway, thanks for hanging out. Just some thoughts and feelings on the way that things are going. Pay attention to this market. It's definitely going to keep twisting in weird ways. And I don't know how much impact Commander Masters is going to have yet until I actually see the spoilers coming out. But Lord of the Rings may go on for a while if certain cards are not found, like the One Ring, or any of these serialized rings don't get found in quantity. It's going to be very interesting, guys. Haven't seen this before. So thanks again for hanging out. Thanks for allowing me to entertain you here on the channel today. And I hope you all have an amazing Magic weekend. And this weekend, I will probably have a lot of box opening videos, of course, of Collector Edition Lord of the Rings here on the channel. So check out probably on, I guess, Saturday night or Sunday. I may do multiple videos of those days so you can get a good viewing, and who knows, we might find one of the rings. And of course, a massive shout out, a huge thank you to the supporters of this channel, to my patrons, my YouTube membership members. Guys, this support means everything. Thank you from me and my family to you guys. Thanks again for being there. Here we are. Here's 6:40 a.m. And no, I don't work there. I picked this up at a thrift store a long time ago when I was a poor student. I've just kept this coffee mug around to remind me that you can get a lot for 25 cents when you go looking. Welcome back to the end of the video. It's a very interesting time right now. I'm loving it. This is like amazing stuff. But it also lets me really take a look at what's going on out there. The data I'm collecting on some of these sales figures will never be duplicated, guys. It's crazy. It defies expectation, and it makes me think there are going to be some major shifts on the market about 3 months from now. And you're the only ones watching this video this far. And let's face it, nobody watches this far. Come on, it doesn't happen. And if you watch this far, you can say, I don't know, MTG Finance? No, that seems too lame. That's too lame. Nachos and cheese. There we go. That's the right wording we're looking for. Nachos and cheese if you made it this far. Because that market shift is going to be, it's going to be huge. It's definitely a green light to Wizards to scare the living bejeebas out of us. But hey, that's the way the market crumbles sometimes. Thanks a lot for hanging out, guys. Thanks for being here on the channel. Love to see those thumbs up and comments. Looking forward to seeing what everyone thinks. And yeah, it's amazing. All right, talk to you guys soon.